Moises Caicedo and Declan Rice are undoubtedly going to be two of the most important players on the pitch in Sunday's massive six-pointer against Arsenal in the Premier League. But when it comes down to brass tacks and when you look at the stats in total, who is the better baller? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today, that means we're not previewing the game yet, we're going to preview the game tomorrow, but we are going to have a little look at the stats of two of the most important players for each of Arsenal and Chelsea, and we're going to try and decide who, in fact, is the better baller. But guys, before we get into it, if you're enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so before we get into it, let's do a couple of little disclaimers. Arguably, when you get down to the nitty-gritty nuance of their specific positions, Moises Caicedo and Declan Rice do play two different positions, right? But ultimately, they are both two very important central midfielders. Declan Rice was a storming number 6 when he played at West Ham, but since he's moved to Arsenal, he's evolved into a bit more of a box-to-box attacking threat. And Moises Caicedo is that storming number 6 for us right now, but also he's added a lot of attacking flair to his game, right? And creatory, playmakery kind of things that I think ultimately means that if we look at a pool of big enough stats, we can start to get an idea. So with that in mind, I hopped over to whoscored.com, who now has a handy dandy little AI assistant. I asked it to give me 20 different stats from both players across the whole of this season, so we can compare them, have a look, and figure out who's better. So in episodes past of Who's the Better Baller, I've turned it into a little bit of a game, but ultimately with this one, we're just going to raw dog the stats and see who comes out on top. And we've got a lot to get through, so without further ado, let's get into it. Moises Caicedo has made 17 appearances for Chelsea this season, with Declan Rice having made 19. So we all know Moises Caicedo's been kind of dealing with some injury issues, and ultimately, like, getting him rest is actually a good thing for us. But just in terms of the raw numbers, Declan Rice takes this one. Moises Caicedo has scored 4 goals to Declan Rice's 2. Now, that's really impressive when you think about what we talked about at the start. Moises Caicedo, bit more of that storming number 6, and Declan Rice has evolved into the box-to-box attacking threat. But even with that, Moises Caicedo takes it for the goals. Assists is where things change dramatically, with Moises Caicedo only having 1 and Declan Rice having 5. That shows you that Declan Rice has evolved into a very, very competent, creative outlet for Arsenal. 5 assists at this point in the season is really, really impressive. Neither player has scored a penalty, so both of their goal tallies of 4 and 2 are counted as non-penalty goals, which again puts Moises Caicedo in the top category for this one. Expected goals. Now, this one's really interesting and a bit nuanced, but ultimately I had to give it to had the higher number. But Moises Caicedo currently has an XG of 0.96, with Declan Rice having an XG of 2. So it's a difficult one here because Declan Rice gets the point, right? Because Declan Rice has, you know, a higher XG, which means he's expected to score more goals. But when you dig into it a little bit, outside of the little game that we're playing, Moises Caicedo is outperforming his expected goals by nearly 4 times. That is elite numbers, man. And at the end of the day, he's that deep line number 6 kind of player. Do you know what I mean? So to have 4 goals at this point in the season already is really impressive. I'm pretty sure he's already beaten his highest goal tally in a season for Chelsea so far. But like I say, the fact that he's outperforming his expected goals by 4 times is absolutely unbelievable. But in spirit of the game, Declan Rice gets this one because ultimately the way he's playing shows that he is expected to score more goals than Moises Caicedo, and based on their positions, that does make sense. Next one is interesting again. It is just shots of 15 apiece, so a point for both of them in this one. And again, if we look in the nuance of it, Moises Caicedo being a deep lying number 6, 15 shots from his position is ultimately a bit more impressive than 15 from Declan Rice's position, because ultimately you're looking for Declan Rice to try and score goals occasionally, and with Moises Caicedo, that's not necessarily something that you're like, oh, you know, we're definitely looking for him to score goals. So the fact that he's got 15 shots from his position, really, really good, but ultimately they both get the point in this round. Shots on target falls back square in the feet of Declan Rice with his 6 to Moises Caicedo's 5. Still really impressive from Caicedo, but ultimately this is kind of what we expect from Declan Rice because he is a bit more of a marauding attacking centre midfielder. So ultimately, the attacking, shooting and assisting stats were always going to fall in Declan Rice's favour, you would have thought, based on the position that he plays. But now it's time to get into passes. And I guess kind of like you'd expect, key passes, Declan Rice storms in front with 34 to Moises Caicedo's 11, but Declan Rice is spending a lot of time higher up the pitch, getting into attacking positions, so it does make sense, but that's quite a gap in that one, and Declan Rice takes the point. Successful passes is a bit mad. Moises Caicedo has 856 to Declan Rice's 800 855. So this is just before the Arsenal-Chelsea game. So ultimately, this stat is going to change on Sunday, right? It'd be very impressive if the pass stats stay exactly the same after this game and Moises Caicedo stays in front. But as of right now, he is in front, so it's a point to Moy. Attempted passes falls back to Declan Rice, with Declan Rice attempting 952 to Moises Caicedo's 932. Ultimately, reasonably close when you consider just how many passes have been attempted, but Declan Rice takes the point here as well. But as you would expect, we then look at pass accuracy. Moises Caicedo comes out on top with pass accuracy of 91.85% to Declan Rice's 89.81. Yes, Moy. Awesome job. Absolutely love that. I looked at, I don't think any of our players maintained a passing accuracy of above like 85, 86% last season. I remember having a look into it. So the fact that Moises Caicedo is doing that is really, really good. And he takes the point in this little round. Now, tackles, defensive stuff. This is where we start to expect Moises Caicedo to come out on top. And come out on top he does with 46 tackles to Declan Rice's 25. 25 is still a respectable number from, this is kind of what I was saying at the start about, yes, they do have slightly different positions, but Moises Caicedo more defensive, Declan Rice more attacking, but they do kind of cross over into each other's positions occasionally, right, with the goals and the defensive work. But 46 tackles is elite numbers from Moises Caicedo, and clearly he takes this one. Interceptions again, and this is one of the things that Moises Caicedo is most known for. 30 interceptions from Moises to 12 from Declan Rice. Moises Caicedo is starting to pull it back. I've obviously got all the marks on the screen already, so if you've gone ahead and counted them, you can see who's going to win this, but Moises Caicedo is starting to get some points back in this part. Clearances really surprised me, actually, because you would, based on what we talked about with the positions, Moises Caicedo more defensive, that he would come out on top at this one, but there's quite a stark difference, actually. Moises Caicedo has managed 19 clearances so far this season to Declan Rice's 27, so Declan Rice takes the point there, and this is kind of what I'm talking about the crossover, right? Like, you would naturally expect Moises Caicedo to make more clearances because he spends more time in that defensive third, but Declan Rice is doing the business here, man, and that's massive for his team. To have a player that has such a massive attacking output, and ultimately that's supposed to be his focus, to also be getting involved in clearances, which is clutch defending at the end of the day, wicked job. Declan Rice takes the point. Aerial duels won. This is a defensive stat, but there is definitely a biological advantage, you would argue, that Declan Rice has over Moises Caicedo in this respect, because Moises Caicedo is not a tall guy, and not much of a jumper either. So aerial duels won. Moises Caicedo has 7, Declan Rice has 19. Kind of to be expected. Moises Caicedo is not exactly attempting a huge amount of aerials, is he? Because ultimately he's quite a short guy and he prefers to be, closer to the ground with interceptions and tackles. But still, 19 aerial duels, really impressive from Declan Rice. Dribbles won. So this one's actually really close. Moises Caicedo is an excellent dribbler, and that is actually kind of part of his game in order of getting the ball from deep, dribbling and starting attacks from the defensive third and in the midfield. But Declan Rice just edges him out with 9 successful dribbles to Moises Caicedo's 7. And now we start to get into the rough and tumble, right? The dark arts, or whatever you want to call it at the end of the day. We're going to look at fouls committed, and Moises Caicedo has committed 21 fouls this season, and Declan Rice has only committed 15. So Declan Rice takes the point there, but at the end of the day, that's another one you will probably expect to happen weighted towards the position that Moises Caicedo plays. He's attempting a lot more tackles, he's succeeding in a lot more tackles, so ultimately that does mean that he's likely to commit more fouls as well. Fouls won is another one that's really interesting though. Moises Caicedo has been fouled 21 times to once by Declan Rice. Now, this one seems maybe it's a little AI faux pas. I'd be really, really surprised if Declan Rice has only been fouled once this season. Maybe that's true. If you happen to know anything about Declan Rice's foul stat, how many times he's been fouled this season, but this is what Who Scored is telling me. But ultimately, it makes sense, doesn't it? Moises Caicedo is such an important part of our team, and when he gets the ball, he can start attacks, so it makes sense that he's being targeted by players when he gets the ball. And the last two, we're going to look at cards. Moises Caicedo has picked up 4 yellow cards this season compared to Declan Rice's 3. So that one isn't a huge surprise. Do you know what I mean? That one makes sense in of itself. And although they are very close, Declan Rice takes the point for that one. And finally, red cards. Neither player has received a red card this season, which is particularly surprising from us because all of our players have got red cards at some point this season. It's been absolutely mental. But both players get a point because neither of them have had a red card and they're both just very good boys. So that's it, guys. That is a comparative list of 20 stats that we use to compare Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo across all competitions this season. So if you're eagle-eyed and you counted ahead, you can clearly see that Declan Rice did come out in front with 13 points to Moises Caicedo's 9. And I feel like this list was a little bit more weighted on the attacking stuff, I guess. But at the end of the day, Declan Rice did come up trumps in some of those defensive metrics and statistics as well. So you would probably argue that Moises Caicedo is a better number 6 than Declan Rice. Declan Rice is a better attacking player than Moises Caicedo. But as a complete player, which is really what this list is garnered towards trying to figure out, as of right now, it does look like Declan Rice takes the cake for that as well. But if Moises Caicedo can keep on adding more goals and creativity to his game, then maybe in a year or two he can find himself mixing it up with Declan Rice in terms of being one of the most complete midfielders in the Premier League. But as of right now, that's not the case. Either way, this doesn't really say much about what's going to happen in the game, right? At the end of the day, Moises Caicedo is going to be playing as a number 6, and Declan Rice, should he play, will be playing a more attacking, creative number 8, box to box, and he's doing really well, man. At the end of the day, Arsenal are in front for a reason, and by the looks of it, Declan Rice has been a massive part of that. So, guys, tell me what you think. Is this list just arbitrary and pointless? I know there's two ways of looking at it, isn't there, at the end of the day? Like I say, the caveats are Moises Caicedo, defensive player, Declan Rice, more attacking player, but they are both reasonably complete midfielders, and this is a massive list of stats. For instance, like I say, it'd be easy to say, oh, well, the list is pointless because Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo played two completely different positions. And yes, I get that, but at the same time, you can look at Erling Haaland and Tyreek George, and even though they play different positions, Erling Haaland is still clearly a better player than Tyreek George. Do you know what I mean? There are some, there is a bigger picture here. The bigger picture is the complete player. And at the end of the day, it's just fun, isn't it? And I love an episode of Who This Is a Better Baller. So, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks very much for sticking around until the end of the video if you did. A shame Moises Caicedo didn't come out on top in this game, but here's hoping he comes out on top in the massive game on Sunday, which is the difference between a 3-point gap and a 9-point gap to leaders Arsenal. Nice one, guys. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.